Hey there, it's Katie Jarvis with Managing the Mess. We haven't met before. I'm a K-6 elementary art teacher, and I teach at a Title I school just outside of Washington, D.C. This is my 22nd year of teaching elementary art, and this is my 5th elementary school that I have worked at. So I do have some experience with interviewing, and more importantly, getting the job. In this video, we're going to focus in on interview questions that you should be prepared to answer in your upcoming interviews. And I've broken this down into 4 categories. The first one being art room management. Next, lessons. What is it that you're going to be teaching? Also, the big category of teaching. How are you going to teach these students? And finally, engagement and connection to that school that you are interviewing with. Without a doubt, you're going to be asked about your art room management because that's what you're being asked to do, to manage the art room. The people that are in on your interview, those administrators, they don't want to manage the art room from day to day. So they're looking for somebody competent, confident, and ready to go with a management plan. Now, with any questions that we're talking about today, you can write these questions down at home. You can write down bullet points for your answers, and you can bring them with you to your interview, okay? There is no rules about you bringing a cheat sheet with you. I wouldn't script everything out, of course, but if you just had a couple of points, like for me, I'm right away here thinking about, I would answer talking about positive things first. If I was asked about my art room management, I want to focus on what are things that I do to motivate and excite my students and to keep them on task. So I'd want to write down gold and silver paintbrush with my happy and sad board. I'd want to write down that I use podcasts, and I'd want to write down about my ketchup and pickle day. So I could put those on a little post-it note if I'm having a virtual interview and just stick that post-it note right behind my camera. If I'm having an in-person interview, that could be sitting right in front of me just so I see those words and I make sure that I work those things into my answers. When you're nervous, it's easy to forget things. Now, for me, since I know I'm going to be asked about art room management and I really want to have people in that interview picturing me working there, I like to bring pictures. I call this like a cheat sheet. What I do when I interview is I have maybe 12 colored pictures printed out on double side on a paper, and I laminate it and I make a copy for each person in the interview. So when I'm asked about my art room management and I start talking about my gold and silver paintbrush board and my happy and sad board, I go ahead and start referring to that picture so people can really see my enthusiasm for what I'm talking about, and they can visualize me being successful in their school. And that is something you can totally borrow and use, and you will find a lot of success with that. Now, after I went through all my positive things about my management, I would want to talk about what am I going to do if there is some misbehavior, because that's definitely going to be a question you will probably be directly asked. What if you have a student that refuses to work, or they're not following directions in some way? What happens? And they're really just wondering, like, what's the management plan? And you need to have one, because this is something, it will make your job easier. If you are consistent, your students are going to be better behaved. So even sharing that with the person that you're interviewing with would be really important, that you like to be very consistent and have this plan and share it with students as well. For me, I kind of have a 3 chances system, and I break this down in another video. If you're somebody that is new and starting out and doesn't have experience in a classroom, it'd be really beneficial to you to watch my behavior management videos and see, like, oh, if I was in a classroom, what would I do? That way, when you're answering questions, you can say, well, this is what I will do when I have my art room. And you can say that with some confidence. What I do is 3 chances. First chance, you get a warning. Second chance, your name is on a little note, which is an art support report. It's something that I sell on Teachers Pay Teachers. It's a communication tool with the classroom teacher, just informing them about what happened and then how I am dealing with that as the art teacher. So I'm not like getting them in trouble with their classroom teacher and their classroom teacher has to do something. It is, what did I do? You know, this happened. There were 2 warnings, so we moved this person's seat. Just informing them so they're in the know. A lot of times parents will contact the classroom teacher first, so it's really helpful that they know what is going on to help you with communication to parents. On that 3rd warning, my students receive a timeout and I contact home and I let the classroom teacher know as as well. And my students are taking a break if they get to the third warning. So you can see with that behavior management system, I was never talking about sending them to the principal, okay? I was talking about how I was going to deal with that myself in my art room. So that's going to be something really important. I wouldn't say you're going to put people in the hallway. I wouldn't say you're going to send people to the principal. I would make sure that you have a positive and proactive approach to begin with, but then you know how to break it down if someone is misbehaving. Now, something I have been asked in every school that I've interviewed for that was responsive classroom was, what does the first month of school look like in your art room? Okay, hint, hint. This is when you start talking about your routines. Now, if you don't have a lot of solid routines or you've never taught before, start looking around on my channel. I've got routines for cleaning up, for lining up, for how I start art. These are all the things I'd want to share and brag about when I'm asked about what's going to happen that first month of school. Something else to consider that you'll be asked is, how are you going to get to know and connect with your students? So again, that's going to be things you do in that first month of school. Those projects that you plan to learn students' names and to get some of their interest shared with you from their artwork, to you then having conversations about that artwork with them. Another question you're likely to be asked is, how are you going to create an environment that has everyone feeling that they're included, that they're valued, and that they're encouraged to make art? So these are some big things to think about, but you've got some time, okay? Doing this right now before your interview is really smart. Like I said, you can sit and write down these answers and you can bring those bullet points with you to help you be even more confident in your interview. You'll definitely be asked, what are you going to be teaching? What are the lessons that you're going to bring into this school? And you're going to be asked, what does a good lesson look like in your art room? If somebody just stopped in, what are they going to see? So that's when they're wanting you really to break down, what does your class period look like? For me, students come in, I have this whole opening routine. I've got a video about it. Do you know how to start art? Where I show them that I go over the rules each time. We do a greeting every time. It's a whole thing. Then I'll give a little teaser of, this is our art challenge for the day. Then I'm showing vocabulary. So I'm showing, today we're going to be sewing, and this is what burlap is. This is the material we're going to sew on. This is a needle. I've got the word needle. I've got the picture needle. I teach a lot of multi-language learners. So sharing that in my interview, that I'm using those visuals and I'm stopping to teach those words shows that I'm really making my lesson accessible to all. I would explain that often I make videos that demonstrate what I want my students to do on the project. So they might be seeing a time lapse of me going through the sewing, or me just breaking down, how do you thread that needle? And then I would show pictures at the end of my lesson with the steps maybe numbered, either in a handout that students have at their table or projected up on the board. Now, when my students are doing work, when they go back to their seats, they often will do a planning sheet first. And that might be coming up with, 4 different little thumbnail ideas of possibilities of what they might do to show flexibility in their thinking, okay? To get them being more creative and thinking of different possibilities. What if this first idea doesn't work out? Well, I've got these other ideas I can fall back on. I also will have my students do a techniques chart just to become more comfortable with painting. They may do 12 different techniques on the chart, and then they have to pick their favorite 5 to use in their painting where they see fit. Come around to the end of the lesson, I might have my students do an exit ticket. Which 5 techniques did you use for the painting? Where did you use them? Where can I find them within your picture? And then I would explain how cleanup looks, that all my students are involved in cleanup and moving their own artwork back. And, we have different stations and pictures up, and I went through cleaning directions from the very beginning in my lesson so students know what to do to be on task. I'm sharing all those details so they know exactly what it would look like if I took over teaching in their school. You're also probably going to be asked, what does good artwork look like? Now, this is when you can really think about what that is to you. For me personally, it's when students can really have their own personality come out in their artwork. They've got their thinking going into their final idea. We're not just all making a sunflower that looks exactly the same. Those are the lessons to me that are the most successful, that I'm most proud to show off in the hallway. But be ready for that question. And for any of these questions, you don't just want to like Google questions and answers and memorize an answer. These need to be your answers that really come from you. You're the person that they want working in the school. They want to know how you feel about these things and how you would act if you were working in their school. One question you're likely to be asked is, how do you make everyone feel like they are included in your art room, and how do you celebrate diversity? So for me, when I'm answering this, I like to have some specific lesson examples, artists that I teach about, that I tie into my lessons, that I've led, multicultural festivals in my school and led art projects that they could do with their families. This year we did basket weaving. So it kind of wove all the different cultures together. So having those specific examples is really helpful. You also might want to share about the materials that you like to have to celebrate diversity. For me, when we're doing portraits, I like to have, different colors of construction paper available, but I took it to another level because I realized that wasn't enough, that students would often just kind of pick the paper that they wished, oh, I wish I was a little bit lighter. I wish I was this color. And I even hear them saying things like this. And other students arguing, you're not that color, until I stopped and celebrated every color. I started calling it vanilla, toasted marshmallow for my light brown, and for my darker colors, calling them chocolate. So everybody wanted to be those colors because they all sounded fun and desirable. So any things like that that show the materials and tools that you would use and that would help everyone to feel included, it's a good time to share that in your answers. Also, you're going to be asked, how do you encourage creativity and problem solving? Because that's really the bigger skills that you are teaching. It's not just cute little artwork in the hallway. You're teaching your students to be flexible thinkers, to be creative thinkers. These are the skills that are going to be helping them to be successful in their future, which you want to share in your answer in your very own way. You're going to be asked the how and the why. How do you like to teach? Do you like to do big live demonstrations and have all the kids come in close? Do you like to have pre-recorded video demonstrations like I like to do? Do you like to do centers and you work with a small group? Do you like to do choice-based art education where students are really coming up with their own challenges and selecting their own materials for projects? You're going to be asked about your philosophy of art education. Why did you become an art teacher? And why is art education important? So take some time to think that out and write down your answers. You're going to be asked about how you adapt your teaching for different grade levels, for differing abilities of students that come into your art room, and students that are very motivated to be there versus students that don't want to be in your art class at all. How do you reach and teach all those different students? You're also likely to be asked about your own artwork. So having some pictures of your own artwork is a really nice thing that you can share. Usually comes up near the end of your interview, but it's a nice connection you can make with the people in your interview to share that side of you. I would also have a picture of some really successful art lessons, because when they're asking you about your teaching, often they'll ask you to tell sort of a story of what's a really successful lesson that you taught and how did you know it was successful? And to show it really helps as you're sharing about it. You also, on the flip side, might be asked, what's a challenge that you had when you were teaching and how did you overcome it? So you want to really focus in on the positive side of how did you get past whatever problem was happening when you were teaching. You definitely need to research to impress. So you need to be looking at the school's website. You need to be looking at the district information about that school from their website. You need to be looking around on Instagram, Facebook. Maybe the PTA at the school has a Facebook group or something that you can get a little more information about the school. You need to know, what does the school really value? What kind of events do they have? Because you're going to be asked, why do you want to work here? And you need to know about the school to be able to really, truly answer that with a connection. You also need to answer that in saying what you have to offer at this school. So this is your chance to talk about how you've maybe collaborated with others in the past, and how you would like to collaborate at that school. You want to talk about how you could connect what you love to do to the events that they already have. Wow, I see you have a multicultural fair. I'd love to do an art project where families can come in and they can make art from different cultures. So you're connecting and showing that you've researched it, you know they have a multicultural fair, and then you've shown how you can take it and make it even better. You'll want to talk about how you can make connections to social emotional learning in your lessons. You need to know what the mission and vision of the school is, because you're likely to directly be asked how your philosophy lines up with that of the school. So you've had to been on the school's website to sort of figure that one out, and then connect that to you, and really, really sell yourself as why you're the perfect fit. You'll want to share how you can connect as well to other subjects when you're collaborating with others. I sure hope this video was helpful for you. This video is actually part of a larger series. I've created some videos on just some basic art interview tips, from what to wear to what to bring to how to compose yourself in the interview, to how to deal with online interviews, because that can be really, really tricky, and how to get together a really stellar resume to get yourself the job. I wish you lots of luck on your journey, and I hope that you'll like and subscribe.